I've been using Framer since the summer of 2022, and man, I've seen so many mistakes beginners make on their Framer sites. In this video, I put together 5 of those mistakes that literally drive me crazy every time I see them. Often these are small details that can really set your work apart from others, so make sure to pay close attention to all of them. My name is Nandi, this is Framer University, and let's get started. So the first mistake is disabling hover states on mobile. Seems very simple, but still many people miss it. So you can see that I have this little website here and I have this card, which of course has a hover state on this desktop breakpoint. However, if you use this same design on phone, then it will have the same hover state on phone as well. And you might think that, okay, that's very fine, I can have the hover state on mobile, but no, you cannot have it. The problem is that in theory, you cannot really hover on mobile because you don't really have a mouse. However, this hover state on mobile will be activated when you tap the element. So if you take a look at this video here, you can see that as I tap on this card on my mobile, for a little second you can see the hover state, but then I immediately go onto the other page where this card is linked to. Of course, you want to avoid this from happening. You don't want to show the hover state for just a second when the user clicks the card, because it's not intended as an effect that you see when you click the card. So just remove it on the mobile variant. The way you can do that is just basically creating a separate variant here for the component. As you can see, I have this mobile here, which doesn't have any hover states whatsoever. So what I can do is I can come here to the phone breakpoint and I can just select the variant mobile, and it will be all fixed. When I click this on mobile or tap it, I will no longer see the hover state. So the next mistake is not disabling user select on text layers which are within interactive elements. So as an example, I have these 2 cards and these have these text layers within, and these are selectable here. And it is always up to you whether or not you want to have them as selectable. But here in this case, I might want to just disable the user select here because I feel like it is more integrated into the design and I just want to keep it that way. And so how you can do that, how you can disable the user select on these texts. Basically, you find the text layer on your design. I'm still looking for the text layer. So here it is, Osaka. So then when you finally found your text layer, you go to the right panel, styles, and you apply the user select style, which you can set to none. And basically you can see the difference here. On the left, we are no longer able to select the text, but on the right, we can still select the text because it doesn't have the user select set to none. So basically that's how easy it is to do it. Again, it's always up to you whether or not you want to have it as selectable or not selectable, but make sure that when you have these kind of interactive elements, just disable the user select on these text layers. The next mistake is not setting ARIA label for icon only elements. So as an example, I have the Framer University website here. And if I preview this, you can see that I have this hover state for the cards. And if I hover over this, you see this little icon here, which I can click, and this quick preview will be opened. And as you can see, it is just an icon only element. It doesn't have any text. So for example, if a visitor on my website doesn't have proper vision, they will not be able to tell what this button does because they use a tool called Screen Reader, which announces all the text elements and alt text and stuff like that on the website for them, so they can know where to click and where to go. But when the screen reader sees something like this, it just doesn't know what this button is. It just has an icon. And so what we can do to fix this is we can add an ARIA label to this element. So I can go into this component. I'm going to quickly find this quick preview component. And if I go into this, you can see that on the right panel, we have this accessibility section. And here I can go and add an ARIA label, which is already added here, which basically describes this button, which is a quick preview button. So I just write quick preview button there. By the way, if it's not here for you, you can basically add it with this plus button. So area label, and then just write in the name of the button. And the next mistake is kind of connected to this one, because when you have elements that perform an action, for example this button, but are not linked to a URL or a website, then you have to set their HTML tag to button. So in this case, this button is not linked to anywhere, but still performs an action. It opens that overlay. So we have to set its tag to button. Again, if you don't see this tag here, you can add it with the plus button tag and just set it to button. Another example for this is on this website. You can see that basically I can click these little arrows to go to the right or to the left. And the same happens here. This is not linked to a URL. However, it is basically connected to these interactions. We basically switch between these variants on the click of those buttons. So if we go into the right arrow component, for example, you can see that on the right panel I have an ARIA label and a tag set to button. And yeah, make sure to do these things on your sites as well to make sure that they are nicely accessible. And so the last mistake is a quite annoying one. I get so many DMs like, hey Nandi, I can no longer click my button on the website, what should I do? Well, it's because you have to set pointer events none on all decorative elements on your website to avoid this little issue from happening. So as an example, we have this section here in Framer. You can see that we have this button which has this nice hover state. But what if we add an element to this website, maybe this overlay here, to give it a nice shadow on the button of the site? Well, we can preview this again and try to hover over this button, and you can see that we can no longer see the hover state and we can no longer click the button. So why is this happening? Well, it's because we added a decorative element, which is this overlay, and it is basically placed above the button. And so we can no longer click the button because this overlay is above it and it is just preventing us from interacting with the button. So that's why whenever you add a decorative element to your website, just automatically set its style, pointer events, to none. What this basically does is it prevents you from interacting with that specific element, in this case, with the overlay. So now you will be able to interact with the elements that are below this layer. So again, just to save yourself from these situations where you can no longer interact with your elements, make sure to set pointer events none on all of your decorative elements. So these are the 5 mistakes that I wanted to cover in this video. However, there's an even more important mistake that you have to absolutely avoid, and I covered it in this video. So why not just subscribe to this channel, like this video, and then click this card here to learn about that mistake.